Look what the Sikh is Chelek Yud, Sikh of Noach Aleph. Very straightforward Rashi Sikh, classic. The discussion of the Sikh is going to be what is the meaning of the words Tzoyhar Ta'aseh Lateva, make it Tzoyhar for the Teiva. What is the taich of the word Tzoyhar? And what was the Eibishter telling Noach to do? Ala posuk Tzoyhar Ta'aseh Lateva, Mefarish Rashi Tzoyhar, Yesh Emrim Chaloin, Yesh Emrim Even Teiva Ham'ira Lehem. So Rashi says Tzoyhar Ta'aseh Lateva, and he says Tzoyhar. The one opinion says that Tzoyhar is a window, and another opinion is that it was an Even Teiva, a precious stone, a diamond that would illuminate for them. The Pashtos Kavanos Rashi, seemingly Rashi's intention here, Shemefarish Tzoyhar Kamei Tzoharayim, that the word Tzoyhar, this is similar to the Even Ezra, who says that the word Tzoyhar comes from the word Tzoharayim, which means the noon time, the time when the sun is shining, the time when it's light outside. And Tzoyhar means light, oir, light, upirish akasavu. And the pasuk means the meaning of the pasuk is She'akadosh Baruch Hu tziva l'Noach las is davar shal yadai yi ye'er ba'teva. And the Eibishter is commanding Noach that there should be light in the Teiva, just like he told him many other details with regards to building a Teiva. He also told him that he should put a light in the Teiva. Maybe Rashi based Pirushim Ahaya, and Rashi is bringing two explanations what that light was. Yes, one some say it was a window. Shal Yoda Yikonis Er Ba'Teva, through the window came light into the Teiva. And therefore the chalein is called a tzoyhar because it was a conduit for light, and tzoyhar means light. The Yeshem, another opinion is Even Teiva, it was a diamond or a precious stone. The Lama Nikra Kan Tzoyhar, and why is a diamond called a tzoyhar? Meisif Rashi adds the words Ha'me'ira Lahem, because here it was being also the opinion that says it was a diamond. It was being used to illuminate the Teiva, to bring light into the Teiva, and therefore it's called Tzoyhar, which means light. But if this is the kavanah of Rashi, if Rashi is saying that this pasuk is where the Eibishter commands Noach to put light into the Teiva, then we have a number of questions. Aleph. B'kraksiv Tzoyhar. The pasuk says Tzoyhar, b'lashon yachid, in the single term. Now, derech sapirish Rashi b'lashon yachid chaloin. And Rashi teaches also in the single term chaloin, a window, or Even Teiva, a stone, a precious stone. Even though the Gemara says avonim teivas umargolius, precious stones and pearls. And others say that Tzoyhar Tzoyhar would mean the idea of windows, but really there was many windows, but Rashi doesn't say chaloinos. Rashi says chaloin. So the question is, Rashi is following the Lashon HaKasav of saying it b'Lashon Yachid. Ve'echispi ka'er shenichnas al yidei chaloin echad, oy Even Teiva achas l'chol ha'teiva. How is the light from one window or one precious stone going to suffice for the whole Teiva? Which was 300 amas in the length, and 50 amas in the width, and 30 amas in the height. It was a very large Teiva. How does one window suffice for, or one diamond suffice for an entire Teiva? Beizu b'yeser yiksha, the second question, which makes the question one even stronger. Kasuv kinim tasa es Teiva. It says that the Teiva was made as kinim. Upirish Rashi medurim l'chol behema v'chaya, rooms or partitions, sections for each animal and each behema. V'tachtim shniyim u'shlishim, and there was 3 floors: the lowest floor, the middle floor, and the top floor. Even if we would try to say, difficult as it might be, that there was one window, just there was a big window, is it possible that the same one window should illuminate in all the different rooms that existed and all the different floors that existed in the Teiva? Now, with regards to a diamond, you can say that possibly they can carry the diamond from place to place, from room to room. This is something that will be addressed later in the Sikha as well. But if Noach has to feed the animals in this room and his children have to feed the animals in a different room, then how will one diamond help, even if you could move it from place to place? Gimel Yadua Sharashi Mefarish Beis Pirushim Binyan Echad Beim Kol Echad Mea Pirushim Levadoi Ein Boi Kedei Leyashiv HaKosav Levivshutei B'Chol HaPratim. It's known that Rashi, this is something that we've learned numerous times in the past, that Rashi will bring two Pirushim when each of the two do not have enough to answer the questions on the Psukim entirely. Umasha Kasha, he brings two Pirushim. Umasha Kasha L'Pirusha Echad L'Akshal L'Pirusha Sheni. And what you may ask on one Pirush will be answered by the other Pirush. And the first Pirush is always the one that's more consistent with Psutei Shel Mikra, with the basic understanding of the Pasuk. And therefore, he brings that one first. What is lacking in each of the Pirushim that necessitates Rashi to bring two separate Pirushim? And in what sense, in what way is the first Pirush of Rashi, that it was a window, closer or more consistent with Psutei Shel Mikra, that because of that Rashi brings it first? And question Dalet, the fourth question, which is following the idea, the concept of the third question. According to this above mentioned rule, that in each of his two pirushim, Rashi is trying to answer a question that would be relevant. According to the other pirush, move on, it's understood that when there is something that is questionable on both the pirushim that Rashi brings, the yesh pirush lishi amiyashiv kushyazu, and then there's a third pirush out there that would answer the question that is relevant according to both pirushim that Rashi brings. Rashi should bring the third pirush that would answer the questions that are on the first two pirushim. Even if this third thing has its own set of questions, that because of that Rashi is bringing it third, because the question on the third pirush is greater, but the very fact that it would answer the question on the other two pirushim should cause Rashi to bring down this third pirush, because it answers the question on the first two. So back to our case of this tzoyhar, since both of the questions, both of the pirushim of Rashi have this question, the Eben Teiva Achas is Kala Teiva, both, whether you say it's a window or whether you say it's a diamond, it has the question that we just asked earlier: how can one diamond or one window illuminate the entire Teiva? So this question is on both pirushim of Rashi. Madua le pirush Rashi ke pirush hachiskuni tetzayar milashon yitzar shemen. Why didn't Rashi bring a third pirush, which is the pirush of the chiskuni? That Sayar comes from the word Yitzhar, which Yitzhar means oil. That Noach was being told by the Eibishter to bring oil. And Noach was being told that he should bring oil to the Teiva so he could kindle oil candles and illuminate the Teiva all over the Teiva. Wherever there's a need for light, you can light a candle. And even if you say that it's not glatik, it's not smooth, it's difficult to connect Shoyhar to Yitzar. It seems like two different words. Also, the way the pasuk says you should make a tzoyhar for the teva is not consistent with bringing something to the teva. So even though it's not such a smooth pshat, it certainly Rashi wouldn't have brought it first, because it doesn't really jive that well with Sutei Shel Mikra. But leidach, on the other hand, this Pirush at least answers our above mentioned question. How is it possible for one window or one stone to illuminate the whole teva? This way, oil, which could be used in various different parts of the teva, could illuminate different parts of the teva. Rashi should have at least brought it as a third pirush, because it answers this basic question on these other two pirushim. In Ois Beis, we're going to ask a more fundamental question on this idea that the Tzoyar Tasel Teva was for the purpose of bringing light into the Teva. That according to Rashi, it seems that at least part of the time of the Mabul, it was dark outside. And in that case, how does putting in a window help if there's no light outside? The window is going to bring in light from outside, but if there's no light, how can the window help? Later it says that after Noach came out of the Teiva, the Eibishter made a promise that never again will day and night rest. Peter Rashi says, Miklal, this teaches us Sheshavsu kol yemes hamabul, that during the days of the Mabul, the Yom v'Layla, the day and the night, were resting. Shalishim shu hamazoles, that the mazoles, the celestial beings, those things that are in charge of day and night and seasons and so on and so forth, did not serve, and therefore it was not obvious, it wasn't you couldn't tell the difference between day and night. And this raises a question, as was already raised by the Re'im. What is the purpose? What is the benefit of a window in the Teiva if there's no light, if there's no daylight outside during the time of the Mabul? V'hinei. Mefarish Rashi tirtzu, the kavanas leishimshu hamazoles hi litnuas al galgalim. So the Mefarish Rashi, for example, the Sifsei Chachamim explains that what it means leishimshu hamazoles, it means that the rotation or the movements, the system of the galgalim, of these luminaries from above. I think Galgalim literally, I don't know what the title in English is of Galgalim, galaxies. But what the Sifsei Chachamim is saying is that the rotation, the changing of the Galgalim, of those things that cause the sun, the moon, the stars to operate, to rotate, that stopped. The going around, the rotation stopped. But still, wherever there was light, that light remained in the world, and so there was some light that still existed in the world. It wasn't like there was no light, it was just the Mazalah stopped turning. Galgalim stopped turning. Ulam. So this is what the Sifsei Chachamim says on Rashi, because obviously there's a question, how, if there's no light, then there's no light. So the Sifsei Chachamim says there was light. It just, when it says leishimshu hamazoles, it means that they stopped the systematic rotation that takes place usually according to nature. Ulam, this doesn't help us, those of us, the Ben Chamesh Lamikra, who are studying Psutei Shel Mikra. Why? Because we explained numerous times. Rashi writes his pirush in a very clear cut style. So even a 5-year-old who's learning Chumash should not make a mistake in Rashi's intention. And to apply that to our case, to our Rashi, Pirush HaPasha Shel Dvarav Miklal Sheshavsu. From here we learn that they rested. Shalei shimshu amazalis, the mazalis didn't serve. Who, the literal understanding of it, Shalei asu shimusham v'tafkidam, they did not serve their role and their position, their mission. Lahoyer ala aretz, to illuminate the earth. The leirakshin is batlat nuas al galgalim. And not just that the rotation stopped. But if you look at Rashi, as Rashi says, it seems like everything stopped. They didn't do their main goal, their main purpose, which is to illuminate the earth. So our question is, how does a window in a teiva when outside is dark, how does the window accomplish any light? So one, we might suggest another question another answer to the question of the Re'im. Ulefaresh shekavonas Rashi al derech hapshat. The Rashi, according to Pshat, holds when he says that they rested during the days of the Mabul. When he says the days of the Mabul, he means when the Mabul was actually falling, which was the 40 days and nights. But according to this approach, after the 40 days of the Mabul, the Mazoles started once again doing their job, and there was daylight once again in the world, and there was a benefit to the window because it was being used as a light, as a teiva, to illuminate the teiva with the daylight that was going on outside the teiva after the 40 days of the Mabul. However, this still leaves open a question. According to the opinion that Sarah is a window, what illuminated the teiva during the 40 days that the mazalos did not serve? So even if you're going to say that after 40 days there was light from the window, what gave them light in the previous during the 40 days of the actual Mabul? So we have here a question. If we're going to go with a pashtus understanding of Rashi, that Noach was being commanded to bring light to the Teiva, we have a couple of questions. A few questions. Number one, how did one stone, or one precious stone, or one window illuminate the entire Teiva with all of its rooms and floors? Why does Rashi bring two pirushim? Why does Rashi not bring the pirush of the Chizkuni, that Sayar means oil, that Noach was being told to bring candles to the Teiva? And a question in Seif Beis, in Ois Beis, is what was the benefit of a window if there was no light outside? And even if you're going to say that there was light, after the 40 days of the Mabul, where did they have light from during the 40 days of the Mabul? Here the Rebbe is going to change the approach, change our understanding of the individual commandments that came from the Eibishter to Noach. And he's going to tell us that there's many things that Noach was supposed to do in the Teiva that were not told to him explicitly by the Eibishter. Because when the Eibishter told him to build the Teiva, it was obvious that there's certain things that have to get done. And one of the examples we'll bring is you have to put a roof onto the Teiva. You don't have to be told to put a roof on. Because in reality, you can't have a Teiva without a roof. And based on that, he's going to say that the basic light that the Teiva needed, Noach did not need to be told to do so because that was obvious. And Seyar Tasam Teiva was an extra light that the Eibishter wanted. When the Eibishter commanded Noach to make the Teiva, he was not told all of the different details that were necessary in the making of the Teiva. It says in the pasuk, Noach removed the cover of the Teiva. And we don't find anywhere where Noach was commanded to make a cover for the Teiva. Kain la Pirush Tzayar Even Teiva. Similarly, according to the Pirush, that Tzayar means a precious stone. We find a window also, because the Noach had to send the bird out of the window in order to find if the water dried up. And nowhere do we find that Noach was commanded to make a window, if Tzayar means Even Teiva. Nor do we find that the Eibusher commanded Noach to make a door for the Teiva. We do find that he told him to where to place the door. That the door of the Teiva should be on the side, not on the top. But to be told, make a door, that he didn't tell him. והטעם, בפשוטי של מקרא מובן, שכאשר ציווה הקדוש ברוך הוא לנוח לעשות טבע, לא יהיה צריך לצווי על כל הפרטים המוכרחים להיות בבניינו. It's understood according to Psutei Shel Mikra that when the Eibishter told Noach to make a teva, he doesn't have to tell him every single detail. Many of these details are self-understood. Only things that Noach would not have known on his own. Did the Eibishter command him explicitly about them because he may not have known it on his own? Therefore, he did not need to be told to make a cover for the teva or to make a door for the teva, because it's obvious that part of the primary details in building a teva is a door and a covering. Move on. So based on this, we could apply this also to the lighting. Also to the lighting of the teva. Noach did not need a command with regards to the teva, to the lighting. It's obvious that he would have to bring something in that would bring light into the teva. They were going to go into the teva for a time period. And there was going to be day, there was going to be night, and there's going to be different rooms, and they're going to need light, they're going to need to see what they're doing. Based on this, is understood also with, especially since the Teiva had animals and behemoths and all different kinds. Al Noach, whose feeding was Noach's responsibility of and each of them was in their own section. Certainly Noach prepared oil and candles to illuminate the Teiva, even without being commanded explicitly by the Eibishter. So this is a whole new approach, that not every detail that was Noach commanded about, and therefore lighting is something that's very obvious. Everybody knows if you're building a house or you're building a sukkah or whatever it is, a tent, you need light. So obviously, if he's building a teva, he's going to need light. Clearly, Noach was smart enough to bring candles and oil to the teva. Ella. But based on this, we have a question. Why does the Eibishter tell Noach Tzeir Tasal HaTeva? Regardless of being told Tzeir Tasal HaTeva, we just explained that Noach would have anyways prepared things to illuminate the Teva. So why does he have to be told Tzeir Tasal HaTeva? Therefore, we must say that there was a specific command. That the Eibishter commanded him to make a tzayar, inyan shel a lighting, a luminary, neisif leha'er sheichin midaitay, b'chtei lehaisif b'teva. The Eibishter wanted extra light in the teva. And therefore he said, besides the lighting that you're going to do anyway, which will cover the fact that any light that you need for the things you need to do in the teva you'll have, I want extra light in the teva. And that's why, according to Rashi, Tzayar Tasal HaTeva is not the commandment from Hashem to bring light to the teva. because that Noach knew anyway. Tzear Tasel Teiva, according to Rashi, according to the Sicha, is Hashem telling Noach to bring extra light to the Teiva. Now, how do you bring extra light to the Teiva? And in this additional light, the Farish Rashi based Pirushim. Rashi brings two Pirushim. The first pshat is that it's a window. The window gave extra light to the Teiva, at least after the 40 days when the mazalis didn't function. Even though one window is not going to add that much light, the window had other utilities as well. To bring things in, to take things out, to bring in fresh air. So the Eibishter tells Noach, I want you to add more light, so therefore make a window so that there'll be more light in the Teiva, and you'll also have other uses from this window. This pirush is not so smooth. So mevarech means comfortable. From the fact that the pasuk doesn't use the word chaloin, which means window, but uses the word seyar. So obviously, the main purpose of this window was not for the extra utilities, but for the light. Number one window is only going to illuminate a small part of the Teiva. No light came through the window until the end of the 40 days of the Mabul. So therefore, this question lacks, this pirush, the chaloin, lacks some smoothness. Because on the one hand, because point number one is not a lot of light would come from a window. Two, no light came from the window for the first 40 days. And that's why Rashi brings a second pirush. That this was a precious stone. They are able to bring this stone, this precious stone, this diamond, to all different parts of the Teiva. To give extra light in necessary times. And also it was a light all the time, even during the 40 days when there was no daylight outside. So Rashi brings a second pirush that addresses the two deficiencies in the first pirush. The two deficiencies were that one window can't illuminate the whole Teiva, and two, that there was 40 days that there was no daylight. Using the second pirush that it was a diamond, the diamond could function all the time, even when there's no daylight, and it could be moved around to different places where extra light is needed. Ella, shepirush zeh even Teiva, but nevertheless, this pirush einoi misyashev v'lashon hakasuv. It doesn't fit in well in the lashon of the pasuk. Tzoyhar tas la teva. You should make it tzoyhar for the teva. You should bring in the tzoyhar. Tas la teva means it sounds like it's part of the teva, and if he was trying to say that it's a diamond, he should have said, bring it into the Teiva. It's an outside thing that's not part of the Teiva. V'gam, madua yitzava HaKadosh Baruch Hu lasis davar bilti ragi legamri lahachin even Teiva b'shvil tezus erba Teiva. Why would Hashem tell Noach to do something so unusual, to bring a diamond for extra light? In other words, if you needed extra light, you could bring more candles. If you needed extra light, you could bring a window. A diamond is something that's very unusual as an object used as a light. So number one, our question is that the lashon hakasuv doesn't flow well because it says ta'aseh lateva and not tachnis lateva. Number two, if the Eibishter wants extra light in the teva, why choose a diamond, which is something that's very unusual? And since this pirush doesn't fit in well with lashon hakasuv, in other words, pshutei shel mikra, reading the words of the pasuk The Pirush of Chaloin, even with the questions on it, fits in better in the words of the pasuk. Therefore, Rashi brings the Even Teiva as a second Pirush. The first one, the Pirush that it was a window, that is brought as the main Pirush, as the main first and primary Pirush of Rashi, because it fits better in the Lashon HaKasuv, in the words of the pasuk. There's another point to be made with regards to the fact that the window, the Pirush that it was a window, seems to be much more primary and much more consistent with Pshat of the pasuk, based on the following point. Rashi tries to respond, to answer anything that would be difficult in Pshuta Shel Mikra. Seemingly over here we have a major question without any answer in Rashi. In all of the details of the commandments of the Teiva, Rashi gives the reasoning for each of them. And begins with Vilama. And why? Why did we need to do this? There has to be a reason for every command from the Eibishter. Now I looked in the Rashis very quickly. I only found 2 Vilamas. On the Rashi Aselach Teivas. So Rashi says, Vilama hitriche bebinyan zeh. Why did he make Noach build this building? On the words Atzei Goifer wood, Rashi says, Vilama mimin zeh. Why dafke atzei goifer? I didn't find any other vilamas, but Rashi does continue to explain the details. For example, when it says bakoifer, Rashi says bazafes. So Rashi explains why by Moshe Rabbeinu the zephes was only on the outside, and by Noach was on the inside and the outside because the rain was very strong. Rashi says it was a pointy top, so that the water should flow down on both sides. B'tzida tasim, to put the door on the side, so that if the door was on top, the rain might leak in. Even by the carbon, by the number of animals, Shiva, Rashi says that he should be able to have enough to bring a carbon. So even though I only see 2 vilamas, but I do see that Rashi continues to explain many of the details of the commandments that he received from the Eibishter in making the Teiva. Umatam de Tzoyar. What's the reason of Tzoyar? What is the reason why we need a Tzoyar? And Rashi doesn't address it. Rashi says what Tzoyar is, but he doesn't address the reason why the Tzoyar was needed. And if you're going to say that it's obvious because later there's a window, and we need a window in order to send out the bird. He could have sent the bird out through the door. So why do we need a tzoyar? Lachem Pirush Rashi Chaloin. And therefore Rashi says Chaloin, that it was a window. Kivan, Noach on his own would not have made a window. The Noach was bringing light to the Teiva with oil and candles, but he was not going to make a window. Because he was told that the Eibishter is going to destroy the world. The mistaber, the nemru leprati, which it makes sense to say that Noach was told the different details of the punishment, including the fact that the mazalos are not going to serve their purpose. And therefore Noach expected it to be very dark outside, and the window would have no purpose. And therefore Noach saw no reason to make a window. But in reality, when the Mabul began, the Eibishter began to bring down the rain slowly. Im yachzuru, to give a chance to the people to do tshuva, and if they would do tshuva, yugishme bracha, there would be a rain, but it would be a rain of blessing, a bracha, and certainly the mazalis wouldn't stop, and then he would need a window to see what's going on outside, or whatever. And therefore, Hashem told him to make a window. In other words, if we have a question, why did Hashem tell him to make a tzoyhar? If the answer is, according to the daya that it's chaloin, then you don't need to explain why to make a chaloin. It's obvious. A teiva needs a window so you could see what's going on outside, so you could send out the bird, so you can get light from outside. The only reason why you would have to tell him to do it is because Noach might have thought not to do so because it was going to be dark, and Hashem said there's a chance that it won't be dark, and therefore make the window anyway. But once you realize that the window is for light, it's obvious. You don't have to say the window is for light. It's clear why to bring a window. There's no reason why Rashi has to explain it. But based on this, it makes sense that chaloin is the primary pirush, because then we understand why Rashi doesn't say anything in the velama, because a window is obvious why we need it. Masha'enkin la pirush even teiva. But if you're going to go according to the explanation that soyar means a precious stone, now we have to ask, why does the Eibishter want a diamond in the Teiva, and why does Rashi not explain to us what the reason is that we need, for the Eibishter wanted extra light, whatever it was? Rashi doesn't address it. So this is another reason why why chaloin comes first, because chaloin is the pirush that is ikri and most consistent with Psutei Shel Mikra, because from the fact that Rashi doesn't explain anything, why tzayar tasa la teiva, if it's a chaloin, it makes much more sense why Rashi doesn't say anything. Finally, Eis Daled is meyena shel teira shel pirush Rashi zeh. A very beautiful Yena Shel Teira that's going to teach us a lesson from the different types of light that come through a window or through a diamond, respectively. The difference between a light that comes in through a window or a light that comes from a diamond is as follows. The window's light is a light that's coming from the outside, and the window is bringing it in to the inside. The light of a diamond is from within, from its own entity. It's an inherent light that it itself is shining. And these two ideas, these two kinds of light that comes from the outside and light that comes from the inside, from within, is two ways of serving Hashem. The ultimate purpose of Teiro Mitzvahs is to make a tzehar for the Teiva. In other words, the Teiva is the world, and the tzehar is the light. And the purpose of Teiro Mitzvahs is to bring light, is to bring godly light into the world. And this can be done in two different ways, two methods. The first way is to make a window. In truth, the godly light already exists in the world. And he brings a beautiful example from Hayom Yom that it's known that people that are involved in business, in mundane matters, they are able to see Hashgacha Pratis in their mundane matters, their worldly matters. Even more than those who spend their time in the world of learning and davening. So why? Because the world as we know it already has a lakus in it. It's just you have to be able to see it. But in order to be able to experience the Eir Eliki that exists in the world, we have to remove the concealment, the cover that is covering up the godly light. Which basically means to take off the cover of nature, which is covering up on the godly light that is beyond nature. In other words, in this world, you have the godly light on the inside, so to speak, and the Teva, the nature, is covering it. And in order for us to be able to experience the Eir Eliki in this world, we have to take off the cover of Teva and expose the Eir Eliki that exists within. And this is the first level in the person's Aveda. To make a window, an opening, the Teva, in the covering and the partition that Teva makes on Elokus. That this Eir Eliki that's from above nature should illuminate and shine into nature. So you have the Eir Eliki, and then you have Teva that's covering it. And because of that, the Eir Eliki can't be seen in this world. So the first thing we have to do is we have to bring in an outside light, which is the Eir Eliki Shelamayla Me'ateva. We have to bring it into this world. We have to make a window. We have to rip open this covering that's blocking the light to come into this world and make a window and an opening for the light to come in. And after we accomplish this window in the partition of Teva, that there is this light that comes in from above Teva, into Teva, into the world. This gives the person extra strength to lift himself up and reach an even higher level in serving Hashem. And some say, who are the some say? Who are the people who say? Those already made the window, those already accomplished level 1. To break open an opening in the covering that's concealing this world and not allowing the Eir Eliki to come in. So those who have made a chalein now can tell you that there's another level, which is Even Teiva Amir Alehem, a precious stone that is illuminating for them. Not only are they removing the covering of Teva, they transform the Teva where Teva itself becomes an object of light and revelation. Even Atzma, the stone itself, Nastis Even Teiva, becomes a precious stone, which could illuminate that not only are you bringing in a light minachutz, the Eir Eliki Shelamayla Me'ateva, but Teva itself becomes a light. Similar to the two ways that one would be mevarer chayshech. One is to take away the chayshech, so it shouldn't block the oir, it shouldn't block the light. And two, that the chayshech itself becomes light, which is a whole nother level. Similarly, over here is the same thing. Aveda number 1 is Aveda v'chaloin. Open up a window, allow the Eir Eliki Shelamayla Me'ateva into the world. Once there is an Eir Eliki in this world, we could go to the next level where the world itself becomes the light. The Even itself becomes a diamond that gives out light and becomes an object of oir and gilui, of light and revelation.